everybody, this is Valerie G here today with May Arts Ribbon, and we are having a blog hop this week with die cuts with a view. So I am going to be working with some die cuts with a view matte stacks in the burlap colors and the canvas, which these are super cool. They come in packs that have lots of different colors already cut to 4.5 by 6.5. Perfect size for matting photos and maybe running through your die cut machine so that you can get your canvas or your burlap embellishments, and I think they're super fun. We'll also be using the brand new Die Cuts with a View Honey Chic paper stack. So what I actually pulled out from this stack to use are some of these 4x6 journaling cards that are in here as part of the paper pack, just because they were the right size to use for my project. So the other thing that I'm very excited about is that Die Cuts with a View has jumped on board with templates and masks and that sort of thing. So they come in lots of different sizes. There's 5x7 and 6x6 templates, and then even 12x12 templates. So we'll be using some embossing paste in these templates to embellish today, as well as, of course, some fabulous May Arts ribbon. So what I plan on doing today is going to be a little heavy on the sewing side. So a lot of that I will be doing off camera, but I want to make my own little canvas and burlap flip book. So I've already gone through and pulled out my pieces that I want to use, and my intent is to stitch the paper 4x6 journaling cards onto the 4.5 by 6.5 canvas pieces so that they create a spot for you to journal on. We'll be doing some embossing paste on some of these elements as well, and binding it all together with some May Arts ribbon. So let's get started. And after selecting the pages of canvas and burlap that I want to use, I needed something to create a binding for each one of these pages. So what I've selected is this 2-inch wide ivory satin ribbon. I cut myself some 6.5-inch lengths because that is the length of these pages. And then I'm going to stitch them onto the sides to make the binding. Before doing that, however, I did go into the pages that I selected and I did a straight stitch around the outside of the canvas pages. And I did a straight stitch and then a zigzag around the edges of the burlap pages. I'm fine with a few of the threads hanging out. I just didn't want the whole thing to unravel on me. So the binding mechanism is a little bit of a gutter binding kind of technique. The idea is that you separate your pages into half, and I'll show you this here. With this one, I stitched the ribbon onto the front and back covers of my album, having the ribbon overlap the canvas by only about 1/4 inch. The next set of pages, I have the ribbon overlapping the canvas by basically 1/2 inch. So that brings those two pages in just a smidgen from my cover. Same thing for the next two pages. Those have just a little bit more than 1/2 inch. And then the last two pages that will go in here have almost 3/4 inch in from the edge of the ribbon, so that those two pages are really the shortest. And you can see here how we end up with this tiered effect. What that does is that when you fold these pages over, that extra room in the hinge allows for them to all line up neatly along the outside edge. So the next step for me, besides trimming all my loose ends here, is that I am going to go ahead and stitch into my book the journaling pages that I've selected for different pages back to back on the canvas sheets and get those stitched in. And then the next step would be running one single stitch along the very center of the whole book, binding it all together. Okay, so as you can see, I've had a little bit of an explosion of May Arts ribbon here because I was trying to decide what I wanted to do to decorate the outside of my book. So what I've decided on is a couple of really highly contrasting ribbons to put down the center binding. I just overlapped them when I stitched them on, as well as a little bit of double-sided satin ribbon. This is the parrot green and lime green satin reversible ribbon that I've decided to use here for my tie closure. So I just laid them on there, did a simple stitch around the outside edge and trimmed up the edges a little bit. And now I can go in with all the rest of my pages that I have got all sewn together and all those little loose ends snipped, and I can lay those right in here and stitch once up the middle of the whole booklet, and the whole thing will be bound, and then we get to have fun doing our decorating and adding in photos and journaling, and I'll get that done and I'll be right back. Now I want to go ahead and finish up the decorating of my cover with some embossing paste. Die Cuts with a View has got a couple of different great templates here, but I really like this phrase that says live your life on this one. And I'm going to go ahead and take some various scraps of masking tape that I have, and this is part of why I don't sweat using this stuff, because I save it when I pull it off of projects if it's savable, and then I will reuse it for when I'm doing something like this. And then once it's not usable anymore, I'll just chuck it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Dreamweaver embossing paste today and just take a little bit of it here and very cleanly swipe across this template. I don't want to make too many passes. I do want it to be smooth and even, however. I think that looks good. Scrape up any excess here. And you do want to wash your tools and your template as soon as you can. Just warm soapy water should be fine. Masking tape didn't want to let go, and I think that looks fabulous. I love how that bright white stands out against this really, really vibrant cover. So there we go. So I will let that dry for a little bit. So when it's all said and done, we have the Live Your Life on the front. I would tie a nice bow with the ribbon over here on the side, and there we have our finished project. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you are excited to play with some of this new canvas and burlap product, combining it with some of your May Arts ribbon, and maybe you can make your own little journal too. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next time.